Hey everyone, this is the SSB Wannabes podcast, episode 10, the first live streamed episode that we're doing. My name is JD, and I'm joined by...
Yeah, this is Will, aka Wassabi. What's up?
Yeah, and we are just doing something a little special for our episode 10. We usually just record off stream and then edit and throw things up, but for this time we wanted to do something a little more fun, have people join us in the chat, maybe answer some questions. We also have some surprise questions for each other as we go on, just to kind of spice things up. But what I wanted to do is just talk about what we've been doing with this podcast for the past, 3 months now?
Yeah, it's been like 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've missed
We missed only 1 week, so it's a little short of 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just sort of how it's been doing that. We talk about it every week. We always kind of pop off for ourselves about how nice it is to have someone to talk to about these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the main gist that I get out of it is, it's not like we started doing this and it blew up and everyone started following us. It wasn't about.
We're at 13 followers though.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Double digits, but yeah.
But it feels good to know that once a week, because I don't really prepare too much for it when we talk,
No, we kind of just do what we just kind of run it, do it live, and then something happens normally.
Yeah, so it feels like a low obligation kind of therapy session centered around Melee, and that feels good. How about you?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it. Like, I think the big thing for me is that it's like lets me like get out a lot of like thoughts that you have in your head, and I think like the problem with like the great thing and the problem with like stuff like Melee or like FGC sort of type games is it's not a team thing, right? Like and even for other games, right? Like when you're like solo queuing for whatever, solo queuing is a term for like League and CS:GO and stuff like that, right? And Dota. And so it's like, you're trying to improve and stuff like that, but you don't have like this sort of like, you might not necessarily have like people to like back you up per se, and it can be like, as I said in episode 1, like a very lonely journey. So like this is always nice just to like have someone like around your level that can kind of like understand your thoughts and like kind of relate without you having to like explain a caveat beforehand is like super important,
Right.
And like super beneficial,
Right. Because no one, even the people in our lives, our loved ones, the people that truly want to, talk to us and hear about what we're going through, even the people who care the most just can't possibly understand. And it's not that it's this, it's not that this is outlandish, crazy thing we're doing. It's just so unique and specific so that when you're in these moments of highs or lows, when when you have a good performance or you pick up a good win or these great things happen, there's so few people that you could actually talk to about it because, again, it's just very lonely. And so having this kind of constant feedback of, because we've already been through highs and lows, since we started.
Yeah.
So it's just really cool having just that consistent thing, and I hope more people realize that this is like the easiest thing to put together. The hardest thing was just finding someone to do it with. So I don't know. I think it's just helped me a lot. It helped me get through the winter, honestly, better than I have in the past. Like it feels like the winter's already over, even though it's mid-February. Same thing.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's nice having someone that understands me.
Oh my god.
We just start crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is okay too.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get it at one point.
We'll start crying?
Yeah, I'm sure at some point.
Maybe. Okay, here's how we start crying. We actually get to hang out. Well, we did hang out recently, but not really.
We did hang
enough.
out, yeah.
We get to hang out. We go, let's say maybe we travel to like a regional, right? We both travel. Are you going to see me on land? We decided you're not, right?
I think I might. So what happens with See Me on Land, I kind of planned out my whole calendar already. Is I think with See Me on Land, Oh wait, no, that's the weekend that I need to talk to Pilar. I need to talk to the girlfriend about that.
Okay.
Just because it's like sort of a weird thing. Because normally, like for the next few weeks, she'll be working on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
She runs this like SAT prep academy thing, in for New York City kids, and so. But I think that weekend her Saturday is free versus her Sunday, so I'll talk to her about that and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because I know, yeah, it's mainly that. So yeah,
I'm just looking for an opportunity to cry with you. So
Word.
let's see the hypothetical. Let's say we go to See Me on Land or some other regional.
Dude, I can give you the full calendar roll down now. So
Wait, let's do that in a bit.
yeah,
Let's have
Cool.
that. Yeah, because I think that's going to be a long discussion also.
okay, cool.
Anyway, I'm just finishing a stupid bit. We both cry, we both get drunk, we have a good tournament, and then we hug.
I feel like it's drunk then cry.
Drunk then
But
cry.
yes.
Yeah, why would we cry and then get drunk? What's the point?
Well, I mean, you could do that. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, but most of the time as men, we have to drink to have any emotions.
Nah, fuck that. fuck that toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it's the way we're socialized, bro.
I know.
Can't beat them, join them, and drink them.
Well,
Drink up.
drink up. We'll drink though.
I had a few drinks last night. It was nice.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So
yeah.
how's your week gone, dude?
The week, let's see.
Yeah, because it's been a little slow, so I'm curious to like see like what you've sort of been up to, like all that stuff.
This week, I was all alone. So usually I live with my mother, and my girlfriend stays over every night, so she kind of lives here too. You can see the messy bed.
Yeah.
When my girlfriend's here, this bed is perfectly clean, of course.
Makes sense, yeah.
And so I had the house to myself. I had some dogs to take care of. And I it was just a week. It wasn't hard. But it was, I don't know. It was a time to kind of just like, I had nothing to show for anyone. Like nobody was going to see if I was going to be successful or not. So sometimes I feel like, going to the gym in the morning, I get to kind of, there's like an ego thing. Like, oh, they know I'm going. Like I there's a prideness. Yeah. I don't know.
No, it is. Accountability is like a big thing.
Right.
When we talk about building habits and stuff like that.
Yeah. So having a pee by myself, I actually went less. I mean, I don't go as much in the winter anyway, but I only went once this week, which is fine. It's not a failure. It's still going. But I practiced Melee every day, which is nice.
That's good.
And I went to an ultimate tournament, which was fun.
Fun.
And I'm thinking about grinding ultimate a little bit. I still don't know how to grind it. But I like the first ultimate tournament I went to, I went in with zero expectations. I'm like, I'm just going to try my best and we'll see what happens. And I don't care. And then we went 2-2. It was when the game was just like brand new. So
brand new. Yeah.
Wasn't a big deal. And now a couple of months later, I went to another tournament and everyone there was like much better, of course. And I felt like I wanted to compete and actually be relevant. And not even relevant. I wanted to have tighter matches with players that were good, that were doing the good things. And it just made me kind of understand why that game, like every time I play it, I feel like I understand why it's a good game more and more. And so I'm thinking like, okay, how do I start learning this without putting in that same like fervor that I did with early Melee? So it's interesting. I don't know. I just kind of want to be decent at it. That's my goal. For no reason other than like competition's fun and there's more players there and there's more characters and matchups. Yeah. So there's so much to like get out of that, like sitting down with someone and just playing a matchup you haven't played before and just discovering everything. I think for these next couple months, there's going to be a really strong honeymoon period opportunity as long as I just like put in a minimal amount of work. So it just seems like something I could have a lot of fun with. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, always it's fun. Like, it just sounds like you would just want to explore the game a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing the same thing actually.
With Ultimate?
Not with Ultimate.
With what?
I've been playing. I played actually. All last night I played with Jesse or Hectorhertz. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Street Fighter 3?
Yeah.
Huh.
Dude, it's such a fucking sick game. There's like it's the parry system. It's like where it's the same game as like the Evo Moment 37.
Oh, with Daigo and
Justin Wong.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like one of the best fighting games, right?
Yeah. It's honestly a sick game. I got into it because I watched Phil's. So Phil and Tristan, Bird Up and Geodude, they went to Japan, and so, and Phil made his like mini doc that he normally does of Co-op Cup or Cooperation Cup, which is this giant grassroots like no money involved crew battle of like 5v5 crew battle for Third Strike, and I was like,
he told me about that actually.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking sick. And then I watched Third Strike. I'm like, yo, this game is nuts, And so I kind of just wanted to play it. And like I've been looking for a Street Fighter game that I kind of want to get into. Like I do enjoy watching Street Fighter and watching other fighting games. So, but I definitely want to like try it out. Like I played it for a few hours like yesterday, and I still can't get like the controls done and stuff like that. But it's super fun.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to, and I'm not doing it where it's like, oh, I'm going to play this and hopefully it translates to Melee. Like, I think it's just like the way I see Street Fighter Third Strike is it's just like, it's a game that won't like really tire out my hands too much as much as Melee. And it's just like, it's that other game I can like kind of practice when I'm like a little Melee'd out,
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big video game person really, like I'm playing Celeste and that's really fun. Honestly, you should play it too.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For $15, it is like one of the best steals. That and Hollow Knight are my only two recommendations.
What kind of game is it? It's an RPG?
It's an adventure platformer game.
Oh, I dig it.
Yeah. Adventure platformer, but there's stuff like air dashing. You can like technically like wave dash sort of with it, and then like the movement mechanics are really cool, honestly, in it. And if you like really hard like puzzle, like Metroidvania games, sort of like that sort of style, then it's really fun.
Okay.
It's like have you ever Super Meat Boy?
Yeah.
It's like that.
As difficult?
In terms of difficulty, like maybe not as crazy, but it's up there. Yeah, it's difficult.
Okay. Yeah, I always like to take a step back from the grind of Melee. Like it's good to just have like I play a lot of I don't know if you're familiar with Warcraft 3 custom games.
Yeah.
So
I was watching you stream it, I think, one time.
Yeah, they're just BS like tower defense and like
yeah, I definitely watched you stream this. Yeah,
right. And those types of games are I mean they're just play. It's just playing. There's no end goal. There's no, anything to get out of it. It's just joy for the sake of it. And sometimes it feels like Melee can become work. Obviously, I mean that's why we feel the need to talk about it. Because there's so much stress that needs to go into it in order to get like maximum value out of it. And that's kind of what we've been talking about for the past 10 weeks is how do we balance what we normally do, like, life and work and relationships, and then this other piece of now it's like a piece of our soul, something we can't even escape from if we wanted to.
Yeah, there's no way.
What's the balance? And that kind of... So you sent me the No Frills podcast, which was amazing, which, I loved it immediately.
Different topic for itself, but yeah, continue.
Right. So there's just this difference between the FGC and Smash. Like, Smash is like, Melee is so specific. If you're a Melee player, you are a Melee player. it seems that if you play fighting games, you're a little more fluid in which one you could play. Like you can try a bunch out, and there's enough crossover mechanics that you could kind of search for one that fits you either at the moment or one that has the, or your friends move to, things of that nature. But Melee just feels like it's its own entity, and I'm just wondering how. I don't know. I'm keeping an eye on how those two lanes will, if they diverge, or if Melee is going to be more accepted by the FGC. It's just interesting. Like,
I think
it's a bit of an identity crisis. I think that Melee has.
I sort of get what you're saying, but I definitely have my own thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I think what you're saying is that like Melee, like it's not that Melee isn't an FGC or it's different from the community. I think what it is it's more so like within FGC, right? You can play a game, and then it's a lot easier to find a game that you can pick up after like say you're playing Marvel vs. Capcom, right? Marvel vs. Capcom 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're an MVC3 player, you love the tag team system, you love sort of that sort of style, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have options to play games that are very similar, and also that are that are a little more mainstream, where you can find a lot more people easily to play it and stuff like that. Not saying that like the other fighting game platformers don't have that, but
Mm-hmm.
like, right, if you play MVC3, you can play Dragon Ball, you can play Skullgirls, which is Skullgirls is a really sick game. It just is a smaller community, right? Like Melee almost lost to Skullgirls in Evo 2013,
Yeah.
right? By like a few thousand. So like you can play Skullgirls, you can do so many other different tag team sort of styles, but also the big thing is controls transfer over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do you see controls transfer over for as fluid, I guess, as other games. And maybe I feel like the only one, and I want to give it credit to, is that like, well, now we have Ultimate, right? And that's a little bit, we can understand that more. But I feel like the only one that I kind of understood from the get-go and had like fun like day one of was and could like, when I say fun is like, I think you can play the game, but where it feels like you're not button mashing and you're actually making like certain decisions about the game,
right,
and certain decisions of like, I think he's going to do this, I'm going to do this, and being able to execute those ideas well enough, I think was Rivals. And Rivals is an amazing game for that reason. Is that it really feels like this very unique, distinct game where when I'm playing Rivals, I'm playing Rivals. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a Melee copy or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it easily translates where you don't have to learn a complete new system, right? Like when I want to play Third Strike, I have to get used to like, there's no aerial drift or there's nothing like that or anything like that, right? Or there's no shield system, or getting hit by a jab means more in Street Fighter because you have a life bar, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many differences that you're learning like this completely new layer of games, and with FGC you can translate that, right? Everyone plays on a stick. You can be like, oh, okay, like you can transfer between Dragon Ball to regular Street Fighter to Tekken if you want to, right?
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot more cross pollination with the FGC.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that I notice and makes me feel like that Melee is kind of like an insulated community, not an exclusive community necessarily, but it is obviously has its barriers. What am I trying to say? Like, there's not a lot of Melee players that would stream Rivals for a couple weeks, maybe when it came out, but I just feel like when you play Melee, you are full force playing this game, and I think it's just because there's been conditioning of there's been 2 Smash games that haven't really hit the spot, and Melee's just been providing that over and over and over again, and now it's like a little too late to go back. So we're in this weird area where Ultimate's out, and even Ultimate, like, I love it, but it doesn't, like, all right, when you take a deep breath, but then sometimes you take a deep breath and then there's just that little extra that for some reason just more satisfying right at the end. Like that's exactly the amount of breath you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But it's getting that full 100% satisfaction. And I don't know if that's just because I'm a Melee player. Maybe it's just because it's my favorite game and other people in the FGC. I just want to know if there's going to be a world where there's going to be more of a like platform, like what's even the genre of Smash Brothers?
Platform fighters.
Platform fight. Yeah. Like if there's going to be a PFGC, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's coming, but it's going to include both Smash games, Rivals, Slap City, Brawlhalla. Is that still going?
Brawlhalla's still going. Yeah, I played it for a little bit on my computer on keyboard.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I really like that too.
Yeah. I just wonder if that's going to happen, if there's going to be kind of a more centralizing, cuz right now we have tournaments like Shine hosts all of those games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But where does Melee fit in? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other issue is right in other fighting games you have classic archetypes, so you can be like, I like, you know, you can be like, I love who am I thinking of? Abigail for Street Fighter 4. Who's the Russian guy in Street Fighter?
Hagar?
Zangief.
Oh.
I love Zangief. I love like Zangief, right? He's like a grappler type and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love Zangief. He has throws. He has command throws. He has like, he's a grappler, right? For all purposes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at other games and be like, okay, who's a grappler, right? You know, who's a grappler, and then you can go from there. Or you can be like, I love Dalsim. He has long pokes from full screen away. He keeps a very zonal game. All right, who's playing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you don't have that. Like I know, like Wave Dash Gaming tried to make it with like whatever their game was called, Icons,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have those like sort of like archetypes or anything like that.
Yeah, it's you come in, you have to learn what each of the characters are, and then you get to decide, okay, this is how I want to play the game. This is how I want to practice. It's just there's no intuition in and out of Melee.
And it's such
except
a big
for Slap
curve
City.
to learn a game. Except for Slap City. Well, also Rivals.
And
Rivals.
Rivals.
I played Rano, this frog character, had fucking needles and a bear. I'm like, that's chic. Reverse bear fair. That was it, you know, with a Yoshi tongue grab, and I was like, I can work with this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And also like, you know, Drew and G from chat, that kind of like brings in like a really interesting point where it's like there's no money going into any of these games either. Like even in Smash, like break off to a platform fighter, right? Like it would need to be like pretty much fan made for it to happen, like with Rivals, right?
That's actually a really good. Would you mind changing topics a tiny bit? It's
go for it. Just
not quite a huge
segue.
Yeah. So having no money, there's it's obviously something that it's always brought up. Some people revel in it. Some people are happy that the Melee community doesn't have money because we stay more grassroots. But those people are scrubs. I don't know if anyone is really, if you're putting all your time into something, you want there to be some opportunity to do it more and sustain, you know, your life and afford rent and food and things like that with putting your everything into it. You know, if I had the opportunity to do Smash content full time, I would do that because that would be amazing, and I would get to give back to a game. So the difficulty is, how do you, as a community, find money to inject into, you know, not just content creators or players, but the TOs and everyone who goes into running these events. How do you put money to the vendors, the artists, people that are trying to, you know, make a career through not just Smash, but their their outside passion combined with Smash. And it's a huge question. It brings
That's
me
the question
to
you're always thinking about
always
in terms of monetization. Yeah.
Jisoo had a really good tweet about what it takes for that to happen. I think I brought this up last episode.
Yeah, well, what did it say again? Honestly, I don't remember.
The gist of it was we just need someone to make content that's accessible to everyone, that brings everyone together and can kind of use those, because it's good content brings the views brings the advertising dollars goes into that, and then you could start distributing that money, creating more content, and then you get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, though, what would you advertise, right? It's so much easier for other games where it's like, oh, he's advertising a controller, or
right.
Oh, he's advertising a computer. Like, it's not like you're going to get sponsored by Cardano or Nesmod or anything like that, right?
Right.
That's the real issue with it.
Yeah. I mean, after a certain point, you could kind of just advertise, like what's advertised on streams now. Computer parts, energy drinks. You could just typical, like, nerd things, I guess. Like they look at us as, oh, we're gamers, let's advertise gamer things. And I think that could be enough if there were let's say a good video for Smash gets 100,000 views. It is so good that it gets the top of the Smash Bros Reddit, top of the SSBM Reddit, or top of gaming Reddit. Like, it's getting to these points where people who are even just adjacently connected to Smash are watching this content. Super successful, right? Let's think Alpha Rad, how big he is now.
1 million. Yeah.
Right. So take that channel, or take a channel like that, and just a constant stream of Smash content. I think that is what it would take. I would take like 5 of those, and then what they would need to do is take that money and inject it back into the community in order to gain more content, give it to players so that they could play and stream more, so that there's more top level play that could be filtered and put into, so it's a incredibly difficult concept, and it's not going to be solved anytime soon. But I think what I'm getting to is, I think there is a path for these games to explode just from grassroots. Like, we don't have to wait for Nintendo to give us anything. We just need to have more of we need to make $1 and then put that $1 right back into the community and keep our money in the community. And see where that goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And like, I think, we do have like a lot of injection of cash from the community, but a lot of it, like, as just the chat saying right now, like, is that it goes to some, it goes to like one event, right? Yeah. But like, we do need more exposure, like, and we need big names like Ninja when he streamed like Smash and Splash and stuff like that. So it's like, that's really helpful in terms of like getting it. I think the big thing is, you're right about like injecting back into the community, like from those sort of content stuff, but also like content being accessible, right? Like, when you're thinking what's accessible for everyone, right? For everyone who like knows Melee, that doesn't know Melee, and stuff like that, right? Like, I think that would be interesting too. Like, really funny content idea, honestly, that I think if you're down to do, we can like set it up for to do like within a month.
Okay.
Is bring our CRT to a bar, have like, Phil do some like, B-roll shots of it, and then the rest is like, we just like either stream there or record and then make a combo video out of it.
A combo video, just pooping on drunk casuals?
Yeah.
That's funny. That is good.
It sounds fun, actually. More so because then that just sounds fun.
Well, that's a good idea. It does sound fun. And along that line, like, you know, that video that Hugs was in, like, and I think Mike Hayes did it too. The drunk versus, you know, versus
Yeah, I
casual.
thought that was really accessible too. Though
Right.
a little stiff, but accessible, you know?
Yeah. But that's exactly the type of stuff that is possible. It's just, I think, like, okay, I wanted to give a shout out to a content creator. Do you want to just do that now?
Sure, yeah, go for it, dude.
So
This is your podcast.
no, it's not. It's our podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So let's just look real quick. I gotta find it. But this guy does the Captain Falcon labbing videos.
Yeah, but it's not Sechi, is it?
No, his name is El Cocinero. El
Okay.
Cocinero. That's Italian. It's not Italian.
Yeah, why are you doing Italian?
El Cocinero, because I'm an idiot. So this guy has some of
Sounds like Vish's like Leffen impression, to be very honest. But continue.
This guy has some of the best Melee content I've ever seen. The big one that did pretty well, you know,
The jab one.
The Falcon jab reset stuff.
Counter, yeah. That was really sick, yeah.
It's a minute long, a minute and 5 seconds long. He goes over almost every tech chase situation. I'm just going to throw it up on screen real quick. Let's just...
You can do that?
Oops.
We have that technology?
Oh my God, do we? So, I'm going to turn off the audio also. But this is the type of content that Melee players absolutely adore. You know, you don't have to play Falcon to look at this and just like every new option to get out of the down throw tech chase. You know, people like me and you are going to start bugging out. We love it.
Yeah, that's it.
The problem is, and this isn't really a problem, it's just a matter of content like this. It doesn't hit all the buttons for people outside the community. Even ultimate players probably don't care that much about highly
Melee
specific
lovers, right? It's either for Falcon players or for people that can understand the actual mechanics that's going on to have that happen,
right. And so, you know, I hope this guy continues to do this till the end of time. I love this content. But if you kind of take a step back and you look at, okay, what do we need to grow this community? We need, I think, taking that, and I don't know if it could just be the two different segments of like for Melee players, not for Melee players, or if there needs to be a little bit of turning that content a little more accessible. I don't know.
I think it's you're trying to make it into this like one content to solve it all sort of situation.
Yeah.
Where it's really just like there are levels, right? And the problem with it is that right now I think Melee content is very much screwed like with specifically there's two ways I would say it. Like the complete like the people they're all diehards, right? This is like then there's an umbrella and it's all falls under like diehard Melee fans, right? And then there's like, you know, stuff for the viewer and then stuff for like, you know, people that kind of like know more about the game, know more about it and want to get good, right? So there's a lot of like improvement stuff, right, for both of those levels. And there's a lot of like content stuff for people that know the Melee community inside and out, like and watch any of the Beyond the Summit skits. They're all inside jokes that we get. Like someone watching fucking S2J and Wizzy make peanut butter and be like, what the fuck? Right. But like, but it's all under this like diehard Melee thing, and there's no content that allows you to go from not a diehard Melee fan to diehard Melee fan, and then also on top of that, a non-Melee fan to a Melee fan, right? And so it's just the lack of that section. But I don't think there's no one content to sort of like
absolutely
rule it all.
Absolutely. But here's what I think. Here's kind of what I'm morphing my philosophy around. I'm thinking it kind of in a couple ways. One of the ways I think of it is, can I make a piece of content that's Smash related that my dad can watch and enjoy in some way? Maybe, you know, there'll never be a full understanding. Man, he would have liked if I told him about this one, but he knows they exist. It's how do I make something that someone in his position, with again that adjacent Smash relation, it makes something that they would enjoy. I also think of it as, just purely what is something I would want to be made. Like that's all obviously the most important thing. So I think if people keep doing things that they want to make, that's brilliant. And that's exactly what art should be, like we're creating things. You shouldn't create things just for the sake of other people to enjoy it, but you should also think of the bigger picture of, am I really making this as inclusive as possible? Like, is there something in here for, let's say someone shares this on Facebook. If someone else watches it, are they just going to be turned off immediately, or are they going to be able to kind of get in on the jokes, get in on the fun of it? Because Melee, dude, like everyone who's played video games in the early 2000s has played Melee, this game. Like we talk about it as this niche sort of smaller community sometimes, but that's just the people who play it, like going to tournaments and really grind it out. The game itself is incredibly pervasive in our community, and not in our community, in the world, in this country,
in culture, in
like, culture,
in like early 2000s culture,
right. And so bringing it up and having content swirl around that involves this game, it's great, but it can't all just be and of course I'm guilty of this too, being more inside jokey and doing things that you need to understand what's going on to get the jokes and get the humor. But there is absolutely room for mainstream Melee content to bring people in, bring views in, and make a success out of the game. It doesn't just have to be like we have to start making ultimate content now because that's the main game, that's the one everyone plays. Like Melee has the opportunity to just completely take over everything because that's how good of a game it is, and that's how popular it was.
That makes sense. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think it's this question that like we can explore more like on the podcast and stuff like that as time goes on.
Yeah,
we can start off with the bar idea.
I love that idea. That sounds fun as hell.
I'm so fucking down.
Why not?
I know the bar too. Also.
Which one?
It's this place called Old Tavern. They run Mario Kart tournaments like on Mondays.
Oh,
like they'll definitely let us bring a CRT.
Yeah, we have to bring like a 19-inch little guy. Just set it up in a well-lit corner.
TVs at my place.
Dope. That sounds fun. I am in the city. I'm taking my my last improv class starting March 3rd. I'm going to be in the city every week, every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Okay, yeah, let's run it.
So, yeah, is it in Manhattan or is it Brooklyn?
Union Square.
That's Manhattan?
Yeah, Manhattan.
Okay.
We can just pick a different bar, too. That's the funny thing. We could probably just find a different bar.
Well,
there are bars, in New York.
Well, we're definitely going to have to make that happen because if I'm going to be there anyway, we got to combine. I'm also going to be nice and warm from being a dog or some crazy shit whenever we're doing class that day.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you know what I want to really talk about actually?
Yeah.
Is that I had a really, really sick post Genesis lesson with Drugfox.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think, dude, there were some things in it. So we reviewed my set versus Iceman, where I lost like game 5 to him. And it's with Marth. It's a matchup that I know very well. But he talks about this idea like during it. And I'm fine with describing it since it was like my lesson. But of course, like, you guys should just check out the videos. Like literally, and yeah, sure, this is a little like shout out to it, but like, dude, like his lessons are so good. Even if it's not with you, it's just like with anyone. It's so good. And you can like get that access if you just join his Patreon, which is sick, for like $5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sick. But really he was talking about this idea of like making meaningful improvements to Melee, and how he feels that a lot of players in Melee, they improve, but they don't jump tiers, right? Like they don't jump tiers for it. So you see a lot of players that get sort of stuck in the same sort of level, right? Even though they're still improving as players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the coolest things he said is, so it's talking about like the idea of like meaningful improvement. What is meaningful improvement, right? It's not just like being like able to like, oh, like I gotta, and he said like you can do like vague examples, like, you come out from a friendly session and be like, like I really need to like understand how to like first poke against Sheik and then like, you know, be a little more evasive. You give these like sort of like really vague but it sounds good in the moment sort of comments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one tip that he suggested for me was like look at like, and it's just so simple, but I was just like, fuck, like that's gonna be big. It's like, look, I know that like you're getting better at analysis, but like, obviously you're not at like my level of analysis, right? Like he's one of the smartest players in the world at this point.
Sure.
And so it's just like, but what's a good way to just do analysis, even if you don't have like the lessons, or if you're doing it by yourself, like between our sessions and stuff like that. And one was like, look, there's just you look for two situations, right? You look for situations where there was a swing in momentum. So you took like, you ate 50%, you ate 60%, you died from it.
Mm-hmm.
You look back, why did I die for this, right? And then the other way, where it's like, oh, why did I do good? Why did I suddenly zero to death this guy? Why did I suddenly do that? And just by pointing out those two things, I've tried it over this week, and it's really interesting what you see. You're like, and from that, it's just so meaningful because you're cutting out like your like worse habits while also like kind of reminding yourself and priming yourself to do more of like the really good habits.
Right.
And I thought that was super interesting, where you have to look, and it was so simple because you don't need to be a genius to see it, right? Like I could show like anyone my set against Iceman where I ate like 80% damage and be like, okay, all right, I didn't respect his like wave dash up tilts, from
Sure.
ledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, well, clearly, and then I did it again like, a few games later, and I'm like, okay, clearly this is something that like if they have shown me that it is, I have to respect it, right? And it's just like you can show someone that's doesn't really know the game and be like, that's probably not a good idea, right? Or like another idea is like watching me versus Peach, and he was just like, yeah, you're just not making like getting all these free bears in the matchup. And I'm like, huh. And he's like, and so I played like Ryubi like right at Genesis, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm getting so many free bears. He just kind of gives it to you sometimes.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but like if you were watching you versus Peach and versus Leffen, and you could be like, name one difference. It's like, well, Leffen's getting a lot more bears than I am, and making that sort of simple sort of clue for it is like can be a big game changer, right? So you don't need to be like to make big changes. You don't necessarily need to like go so deep is what I like learned this week, and it was so interesting.
Meaningful improvements. I love that. I because the big thing that always stresses me out with when I do analysis of my own matches is trying to do too many things and not knowing what exactly to look out for. But but that makes so much sense, because let's say I go to a weekly a week, and I watch like one match. VOD. Yeah, I watch one VOD a week, and let's just say I get halfway there to improving on a bad habit. Like it takes 2 VODs to get there.
Yeah.
If I just pick like 2 bad habits or 1 bad habit a week, then over the course of a month, I've just solved 2 things that were killing me.
Yeah.
And
you don't even need to look for your habit, like, right? Because you don't want to prime yourself and be like, I have a problem edge guarding Marth, right? When really that's not your problem against Marth, right? Because like once you prime that idea, psychologically speaking, you're going to look out for it, and you have confirmation bias, right?
And you're probably going to miss other things too.
But like, so there's like 2 real different ways I've like learned to do an analysis, really. And it's one where it's like, I don't know what to do in X situation. Let me see where I'm losing to it, and then let me watch other people do that situation only. Mm-hmm. Like, say I'm watching edge guarding Peach. Don't care what Leffen does besides how he edge guards Peach. You have to do it in small steps, right? The other way is the way that I just talked. The other way is the one I just like recently talked about from this week, where it's like the game literally tells you what you're doing wrong. You have to remember that. Like the game actually just tells you outright, you took 50% here. You died for this, right? You killed him for this, And so that's like, you don't even have to worry about like, oh, like, am I gonna miss it? Am I not gonna miss it? Because the game just tells you it.
Right.
And it's so simple because it's, I guess, we've been talking, right, for the last 10 podcasts about this idea of like improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like moving forward, I think a factor that we should also think about is like, are these meaningful improvements, you know?
Right.
Like, how meaningful are they? Because it's so true that like, you think of how many players get stuck at a certain level, like they're good players, but you know, I'm sure, I don't want to like put anyone like on blast, but like off the top of your head, I'm sure you can think of a few tri-state players that where, you know, they've been at sort of a similar level for a very long time, even
Right.
though they're very consistent and they've improved, you
Right.
know, and they get the wins here and there, but they're not making improvements like jumping one tier to the next.
Right. So I mean, part of that is the difficulty of improving faster than other people, because
Yeah, of course.
you know, when everyone's playing, you know, there's you could get much better, but then, you know, someone else is also.
But don't you think, isn't that sort of a cop out?
Absolutely. That's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at is like,
okay.
yeah, it's definitely a cop out
going.
because that's, you know, people like Melee players, a lot of them work hard, but a lot of them do not work hard. And I need to get better at the way I practice too, because the way I practice is just keeping warm and trying to play to the top of my skill for a certain amount of time. You know, like it's only like 20 minutes, you know, and there could be more of a deliberate effort to meaningfully improve rather than just make sure that I'm hitting all the tech I want to. That being said, you still need to put in the tech skill practice. But listening to you go over this, it just kind of clicked that like there's a very simple, clear-cut way to find mistakes and eliminate them. Yeah. And so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it really is. And it's big because like, also I think another reason why I call it a cop out is that like, you can't control how well someone else proves.
Right.
You know, like I can't be worried about whether my roommate Joe is improving in Melee or you're improving at Melee, or how fast 2 or Cody are improving in Melee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like it's a cop out because it just doesn't matter. Like, it's, you know, I think the issue is that more so when people say that, it's like, well, you know, other people are improving too. It's that they're not happy with their own improvements.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if you've improved, like, and I've know like people have had this feelings as much as like I have it, where it's like I sort of like at a certain point you'd stop care, like whenever you make a big improvement, you're like, well, you know, I made this improvement, and then, you know, someone still beats you, right? Because that's how Melee works. And you're like, well, it doesn't matter because I know I'm a better player than I was before. You know, I know that I've improved from where I was, right? And that's really the thing, is that like everyone's improving, and like the idea of like you need to improve faster than everyone else is like definitely something true, but it's also because I feel like this one I have like a big rant for it, but it's just like one is that you can't control how fast someone improves, right? You can only control how fast you improve and how much you improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
2, you don't know how you improve. You know, some people make steady gains. Some people, Rishi made a tweet recently where it was like, you know, you could be improving, but it doesn't click yet. There's so many mechanics, so many factors to include into Melee that things don't click all the time. You're building a machine where the cogs don't connect yet, right?
Right.
And then 3 is that like people improve like at their own rate, so you can improve like in like little bits, or you can improve and make a big leap. You don't know what's around the corner in terms of your improvement level, right? You don't know if is the next thing that I'm working on going to make a big change, a small change, or no change.
And a lot of the times, like I want you to keep going because I know you have more, but a lot of times you get a big win when you're not expecting to, where you think you're still in this transitional stage of like, okay, I'm still working on stuff. And then at those moments when you're just kind of locked into playing and you're in that mindset of getting better, that's when you're like, oh my God, I just beat a PR player. You know, I just got to, you know. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And then also like the thing is, yeah, Daniela, you missed it, but like I literally was talking about doing that like right before you left, about the idea of like looking at how much percent you take and then addressing the bigger percents and kind of looking at the situation and kind of grinding that out. Uh, but and I you know I obviously shouted out to Drug Fox for that tip, but you know the other thing is like there's so many facets to improve on, right? Like I think one thing I've struggled with is like I do the thing where I do the opposite of what you do, right? You want to be feeling fresh when you go into tournament, and you know sort of what you need to do to like kind of play at that peak, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't necessarily put in the tech skill work or like the studying necessary to improve after that peak, right? To raise the peak, right? But you always make sure to. Not saying that you don't, but you
Right.
know that you said yourself that you could probably
Recently I'm more of just making sure all my, if I have 8 knives in my belt, I'm just sharpening all of them. I'm not trying to add
and I mean yeah.
that's just the stage I'm at now. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think I fell for the opposite trap earlier, like up until like really like right before Genesis, where it was like, like I keep on adding these things, but they're not sharpened enough yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I keep on adding these techniques, I keep on adding these new ideas, I keep on grinding them out. But if I can't do it in tournament under pressure, then it also is useless,
Mm-hmm.
It's and the thing is, and we talked about this in our last Genesis podcast, where it was just like I need to do the different thing. It's how do I bring out what I have already out in tournaments, out in a pressure situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that's something that I needed to work on. But you wouldn't normally think of that as like something you need to improve in Melee, right? Like people would say like you need to work on like reaction tech chase, getting down your punishes, being a little more disciplined and neutral, like all the common things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Edge guarding, being smart like that. And yeah, so like doing that and like learning how to like sort of deal with like the pressure in tournament is something that's like super super big, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm recently just trying to make sure. Yeah, you said it. Just trying to get to that peak of where I'm at rather than trying to raise the peak, because it's difficult to get to that point, and it's never going to get easier as the peak gets higher of getting to where I could play. So there's a couple things. Danilo's voice, I really appreciate you coming into chat and bringing some things up. I'm just going to paraphrase the first thing he said. He says that they say that they will go into analysis looking for times where they take a lot of damage, kind of like what you said, Will.
Yeah.
And then when they find something, he said around 45%, if they get really punished, then he'll go into the lab and just grind out that situation over and over and over until it feels like he really gets better at it. Same thing if he gets an opening but doesn't quite get the punish that he wants, he's going to recreate that opening and really grind out what it is. And I think that's the best of both worlds, because this game, like, it's said a lot, like in the documentary, it talks about muscle memory and just needing to have the ability to execute without thinking. And then that's when the grinding comes in. So it's thinking about something, figuring out what to grind, and then applying it. It's a really effective way to get better. I would recommend that technique to anyone at any stage of the game.
I would love to actually add 2 points to that, actually, which would be one thing, particularly in his like description of like how he does it, is that he uses the word objectively plugs up your holes, and it's about being objective, right? It's not about a feel thing. And that's what Dark Fox also said. It's about being objective with your improvement, saying this is bad, this is good, and drawing a line at it, right? It's not like I feel like, why is this happening and stuff like that, but it's like, okay, I'm missing, techs on grabs, on like down throws on Falcon, and it's just like, what am I, there's a clear example of what you need to do there, right? And then the other thing is like, and this is just from, and this is why I love like also other fighting games, is that you can get these tips from other fighting games. Is that Justin Wong just released a video because he like is making his YouTube channel big now about how he's so good in like defensive stuff situations, right? And it's like really what Danilo's voice said, which was like he noticed, say, like someone running up to you, like if your reaction is slow on, say, like reacting to Fox's. Oh, here's a great example for Melee, right? I play Marth a lot, right? I play Joe Young a lot, or Young, right? And I got very good, and Swiftbase told me this. It's like, I don't think I've been, he said, you always caught me when I ran in and tried to down tilt you with a drill, right? I don't think I've been caught by drill but so many times. And it was just like, yeah, because I practice that situation a lot. But really, in all honesty, you could just practice on 20XX, saying I'm getting down tilted a lot at this sort of mid, 2 character spacing, right? At this half space. And it's just like, you could just practice reacting to Marth moving from a dash dance into a full dash. Because once they're in a full dash, they have to down tilt or they have to do an aerial, right?
Right.
And you can practice that reaction. Like, one reaction I'm trying to work on is like, when is Fox going to do running shine? And most of the time, Foxes do running shine when they go into a full run animation, right? But you have to work on reacting to that. And it's not having good reactions. It's priming your muscle memory to react to that sort of spacing, to that sort of animation stuff.
Absolutely. So there's, on this topic of, let's say, analysis and then grinding, Ziff brings up a really good point of it's also important to make sure you're playing real people and practicing. I mean, that of course it's important because then that's how you get the analysis in the first place. So it's a little cyclical in that sense, but it's something we have to talk about. Like you get these new features, let's say, and then you have to try them out in the real world. You got to beta test them, but the way I like to think of it is sort of like the mind is analysis, the body is grinding, and then the soul is performance. So you put those 3 together, mind, body, and soul. And that's what makes a good Melee player. And you can't leave any of that out. You can't just be someone who goes to tournaments once a week and just practices competition. That's not enough. You can't just be someone who grinds, which is my fault. The thing that I do more so than analysis, just get into the lab and make sure your knives are sharpened. That's not enough to improve. And you can't just watch videos all day. Of course. So it's finding that balance, and 2 out of the 3 is not gonna kick it either. So let's do you want to get to some of these questions?
Yeah. I mean, our chat's popping. I'm really hype about.
Yeah, we have to.
Dude, I gotta say, sure thing. Just thank you for everyone that's like joining in. Like, this is really fun. This is really new for us, and I can't stop smiling about it. But yeah, let's address it. So. First question, like, so Iram, like, you talk about like mental blocks versus certain players, right? So JD, do you want to like sort of open the floor on this if you have any good ideas? Because I kind of want to like sort of think about this of like my own personal experience with it as well.
Yeah, it's hard. Mental blocks are one of the hardest things. I think that you talked about jumping tiers before.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that that's kind of how everything is labeled right now. Like we power rank our players. We know who's better than others. And so often we'll play somebody who is quote unquote better than us. And we don't lose because they outplay us. We lose because we kind of become too in our own heads, and then we kind of defeat ourselves. So it's a really tough question, because sometimes there are some people that just beat us worse than others. I mean, it's not even because they're above us. It's straight up, this person feels like I can never, I just feel like I can't beat them. And I think you just have to sit on it, and you have to you can't ignore that. I think the first step is just like, this guy's beating me, man. Like, accept that you are losing to the same person. That's the first step, in my opinion. Like, okay, I shit, I can't.
Yeah, because if you can't
beat,
accept that, and you make excuses, you can't get to the next steps of it. Yeah.
Right. And then I think it's a matter of preference. Some people really like to grind the matchup. One of the things I do is In my practice sessions, I only have so much time to practice, but there are two people that I really want to beat. Captain Smuckers, who I've one win against, but I feel like I could step it up and start beating him. And Lint, who I've never beaten. And so
you want to watch my sets?
I probably will.
I have both of them recorded.
Oh my god. Yeah, actually, I definitely would like to watch that. But just whenever I practice, I beat up on a Falco and a Falcon. 10 minutes each. So that's just a simple thing. I'm not saying that works. I'm just saying for me, that kind of, it's better than, beating up on a Jigglypuff, right? It's giving you a little more understanding of how the combos are going and things like that. And I think the last thing is just really coming to terms. I think it comes back to, again, just thinking about it, like, these people are fallible. Like, these players are just people, and you have to humanize them way more than you probably are, because that mental block is just because you're putting these people on a pedestal that they do not need to be on. It's all in your head. And I think that's the real solution, because you could just grind the hell out of a matchup, and then when you go back to them, your mental, you could be playing well, even you could be more prepared than them, but as soon as you lose a stock, then your mental game is gonna, that whole thing is gonna start circulating in your head, like, oh shit, I'm losing to him again. Oh my god, and then it's all gonna come crashing down.
I want to add to like one point about that, because I feel like you like adjacently said like my main thing about the mental block, right? Right, because like when you're addressing a mental block, right, I think the big thing, like with a lot of things in Melee, is that like it's objective, right? You're losing objectively for a reason, and you have to find those answers, and those answers are different for whoever you have like a block against, whoever has your number, right? Like I've had my there was a time where Young had my number, Nerd had my number, and Big Kid, right? Like those are all people, and Nico, right? But one thing I've learned, like while like with the Direct Fox lessons, is that like, yeah, and this is similar to your last point, where one, there's always just going to be an answer of like what you need to do, right? It's just being able to find that answer is more so the hard thing. And two is that you have to remember that that they can fall too. They fall to other players, right? They're not this sort of like Endy where it's like, they won't make that mistake, right? And you have to sort of, as much as that they're punishing you for your mistakes, I feel like, as you said about putting people on a pedestal or giving them too much credit is how I like to put it, is that you give them too much credit to not make mistakes because they're quote unquote the better player, or quote unquote they have your number. But really, in all honesty, if you're looking at it from an objective standpoint, it's two players, right? While one player knows while one player knows either the habits of the other player better than the other guy, or also one player is simply executing better their ideas and in a more coherent and fluid way than the other player, right? And when you view it of like that, it's not he versus me, but it's of these two. If you looked at it and took yourself out of the situation, said this Sheik versus this Fox, right? And this is what you sort of brought up, where it's yeah, you can view it as like a player thing, but it's in the end, it's still Fox versus Sheik, Fox versus Fox, right?
Right.
And you can look at these two Fox and say, this Fox does A, this Fox does B. If Fox and B wins, if Fox A, keeps on doing A, and the other Fox keeps on doing B, which Fox is going to win, right? And so it's sort of this idea where I think understanding that the mistakes, this quote-unquote mental block, I feel like it just has such a huge meaning to it, this huge ambiguous meaning to it, and it doesn't need to be that ambiguous, right? That there are objective reasons on why you're losing, and if you plug up those holes and capitalize on their holes, which they certainly have as players, then you can win, right? It's not like, oh, like, who do you, like, oh, he just is going to do this right. It's like, is he going to do this right, or are you letting him do it right?
Right.
Like, where it's like, oh, I play Wassabi and he's like all over my face, and like I personally know myself, like I give lots of times where I back off. Does it feel like you're pressured, or are you actually being pressured in the corner, or do you just feel pressured in the corner? Is a very different thing, right?
I have a really firsthand, like, visceral example of that.
Go for it.
So I was playing Kaeon about a year and a half ago at a house tournament.
Yeah.
And I was doing really well. I was beating him. This was game 1. It was a best of 5 set. Game 1, I'm up 4 stocks to 1. 4. And then he just like kind of comes down, hits me with like a nair or something, kills me, right? Okay, so 3 stocks to 1, fresh. I come down. He's by the corner. And I get this tickle like in the back of my head, like, okay, Kaeon's going to back throw shine me. I approach him on ledge, shield grab, back throw, shine, kill. 2 stocks to 1. I come down, and that tickle turns into a beating drum.
A worry, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Kaeon does this. This is Kaeon. That's the Kaeon. He could do it. This is Long Island. You're going to die. I approach him again. Same exact thing. I die, dude. I get down to 1 stock to 1, and then he does like an 80% combo, kills me. I lose.
I think I was there for this. I think I saw this live.
Bro, it was terrible. And I think I took, I don't know. I lost the set 3-1.
Yeah.
But it was the worst. And it was an obvious example of like kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me just do, there you go. And just kind of letting yourself get taken over by a player. But that's kind of how it goes, you know? But let's we have some other questions. I want to get to one question that came up a little higher, just a quick one. Danil's voice says, have you tried having fun in your matches? I that's all I do. Sometimes I'll get a little frustrated, and that those moments surprise me. My big fault is that I don't push hard enough, and I kind of like, if sometimes I'll lose a stock or something, and I'll laugh it off a little too much, and then I can't get the fire back. Some people need to have a little more of what I'm doing, though. Some people need to kind of laugh things off and have fun, but for me, I try not to go too much into that. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely good. I think being able to like remember why we're playing this game and remember that the situations are fun is really big, and it's definitely hard when there's pressure on the line. But I think that's really important. And actually, I kind of want to bring this up is like, you know, what constricts that fun is, you know, what is it? It's ZIF or is it XIF?
ZIF.
ZIF. Okay, thanks. So what ZIF's saying is like, you know, right, you get nervous, right? And top players are better at handling their nerves than like, you know, other players, right? And I think that nervousness or that pressure is definitely something that constricts you having fun. So it's sort of like happens in tandem, right? You're not gonna have fun if you're nervous, right? But you're gonna have, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? It's more about accepting, and this is what Daigo talks about, and you know how much I love quoting Daigo about stuff. But it's like the idea of like, and actually, all right, I have a perfect quote for this, but it's about like it's not about not being nervous, because every player, regardless of the skill level, gets nervous, but it's more about like how you deal with those nerves, and it's about accepting those nerves, right? Like, so the coach of Mike Tyson, right, Customato, right, he has 2 favorite quotes, right? Like, so about fear. One is that obviously he calls fear a fire, right? And he says that, you know, it can warm you, it can kind of push you to do better things, it can hide in your senses, right? Because really that's what it is. But it can also destroy you, right? And the other thing is, and I kind of just want to find, so if you want to just forgive me for 2 seconds about, to find this quote, because I don't want to butcher this one personally. So it's something like, let's see, and if I can't paraphrase it, that's like totally fine too. But give me like 2 seconds of silence, and let me see if I can search it in the top 30 quotes.
Telling me to shut up?
Yeah, shut up. Okay, so I can't find it. Anyway, that's fine. So I want to talk about is like, he talks about this idea of like a fighter, right? Because he's a boxing coach, and he talks about this idea of like a fighter who's afraid of getting hit is probably just gonna get hit. Like, that's the only thing in his mind, right? is like the idea of like not getting hit, and really the idea of it's true because you're priming yourself, right? Like when you talk about your Kaeon experience, it's like I just don't get back there shine. I don't want to get back there shine. You're not focusing on the game. You're just focusing on not getting back there shine, which has nothing to do with the game that's happening at that point.
Yeah, sure.
And sort of that's sort of where I wanted to like sort of bring it true. But another way to help with that nervousness, as I said in the last podcast, is like finding ways to reset yourself, right? So for me, it's having those breathing exercises that I do, right? Because, and I'll link this to the chat later, and I linked it to Miso, and he loved it. Honestly, it's about the idea of like how your physical sensations can affect your like mental, your mental side, right? Because like as you're in this like fight or flight response, not a lot of your energy is going into thinking, but in fighting games, it's all about thinking, right? So that's really it. And so like I do breathing exercise, and that sort of like helps me sort of reset for things, right?
Yeah.
Now, talking about a different question, right? We've been talking a lot about top players. Is obviously what makes a good top player, like what qualifies as a top player, right? And this is sort of this like sort of abstract term for it, right? And I guess for me, how I view what a top player is in my mind is really someone that is resilient and strong, and that actively works on their shortcomings, but is also not afraid to, but in turn of working with their shortcomings, either mentally or not physically, but technically, right? Because we're talking about a video game, is that it's that they actively accept that that's their shortcomings first, and then actively works to work on them. And that's sort of what I view top players as. And the reason why I say it is because you look at, for example, Genesis, right? Axe almost reset the bracket, right?
Don't remind me.
I know. It's sad, but it was such an amazing thing.
It was great
for those 40 minutes. And it's just like he did so many new things. How many times have we seen him lose to HBox like before, right? And the thing is that as a top player, you still have shortcomings, right? We saw it with Mango. He lost to Magi. Like that's just kind of like a throwaway example, but there are clear things that every player needs to work on, and being able to constantly review what you need to work on and constantly do it is what for me makes a top player.
Right. I want to take Ziff's answer. He just says W's.
That's true.
Top players win. And everything else has to be like specific to the player, because there are hundreds of top players throughout all games, and but top players win, and they care about winning, and they do whatever it takes to get those wins, outside of sabotage and other debauchery. But if you want to be a top player, then you kind of reverse engineer a win. You say, all right, what does it take? Like I think IBDW is one of the perfect examples of a top player, because it's not about how much time he put in. It's not about the fact that he only plays Melee, because it's not true. He doesn't just spend his time playing Melee 24/7. He has actively told me when he was coming up to like prominence, me and him were talking. He's like, yeah, man, I don't grind specific tech. I'm not good at that. So it's not about a certain strategy or a certain way of getting here. It's just the fact that he found out what it takes to take Fox and beat up the other player and have them fall off the stage up, down, or sideways. And he did everything that it takes to do that consistently. And that was it. That was what he did, and he became a good player, and he became a top player, I should say.
I agree. It's about
simple as that.
That's the thing, right? You have to look at what you're doing wrong and then fix it, right? And it's that constant thing. But that leads to W's. You're right. And being a top player is in turn having those wins and doing what you need to do to get that win, right? That's the thing, right? And Miso talks about this idea of like how does ego play into getting better, and it's really right when you think of ego and you think of pride, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's two ways you can think about it, right? It's both in the way you talked about it, where getting the W's, right? You don't have a big ego when you're trying to get the win. You just do what is necessary to do that, right?
Right.
And that's similar to what I said, right? You need to look at what you are bad at and you need to work on it and constantly like address your weaknesses and shortcomings as a player, right?
Mm-hmm.
But another thing is like how about ego and about pride is that like that they so much don't want to lose that they're willing to do it, right?
Right.
And so you can think of this ego thing as like sort of like with a lot of things, two-sided, right?
It's I'm really happy you mentioned like the positive side of it too, because a lot of times ego is brought up as something that needs to be eliminated. It needs to be completely disregarded. And that's true if you're trying to be like happy, but we're not happy. We're not trying to be happy. We're trying to be good Melee players. So when you have ego, like Pete Holmes, I don't know if I love Pete Holmes. He's my favorite comedian, and he talks on his podcast about ego quite often. He says that he has had problems in the past with letting ego take over, and he has ugly thoughts like, oh, I'm better than that person, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But he understands that he wouldn't be where he is without that ego. And
interesting.
Obviously, stand-up comedy is different than Melee, but in the same ways, they need it really comes down to confidence. That's the positive connotation of ego, right? It's just like self-confidence and being able to do things with assuredness and all that. But you need that ego a little bit. You need to say like, you know what, I'm going to go. And Toussaint's a good example of this. He's not an egotistical guy. When he first started, he did have a little bit of it, but over time he really like wrangled his ego and uses it to his benefit. When he's in last stock situations, you could just see like you see him pump himself up. He's almost going Hulk mode sometimes, and he just goes like, "This is it. I'm turning it on. I'm winning this. Like, just win, dude." That's something he liked to say a lot. Is like, just win. Like, just win. Just do it. Just win. That's ego. That's all ego. But it's why he's a top 50 player now. You know, it's not any. I mean, it's a combination of things, of course, but a big reason he gets these last minute wins is because he truly believes that he can and that he deserves it, and then he just converts that into wins. Now that's dangerous too, because sometimes you feel like I deserve this win, and then you kind of fall into yourself because you're not getting it, and then all that, and that's the drawback. Is both Toussaint and IBDW take losses kind of hard, so that's the sacrifice you need to make. Is like sometimes it's not going to work out. You can't just will your way, you know.
But there are mistakes in that too, you know, like not mistakes in how they feel. That's valid. I'm saying about like they know what they did wrong looking at the set, and it's more this anger and disappointment in terms of how they play rather than like at the other person.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And then they addressed it, right? Like
I'm
they
sure
work on it. You know, like I know I was talking to Cody about his, you know, his set with Axe, and I think the next morning he was like, yeah, I watched that like 20. I already watched like that last stock situation like 25 times, you know.
Yeah.
Like just to like kind of iron it in there, right? And move on from it, right?
Yeah.
He's not thinking about it anymore now. He's just working on it, right? And I think this, you said, you know, I think word choice is a very powerful thing when you talk about these things.
Yeah.
Because it has such a subtle but like important connotation to how you frame your mind, right? And you said Toussaint at last stocks can win, right? And can do that. And we've talked about Cody where it's like, I can do this, but I have to do the work, right? This is something that Cody says a lot. And it's that this idea of like, you know, ego, you know, and you can view it as like pride too, right? Pride in your play, pride in your work that can give you this sort of like confidence. But it's the idea of like, I can be better, I will be better,
right? Versus
the I am better, right? Those two things are so different, right? The I am a better player than X or something like that versus I can be better, I will be better makes a huge difference, and there's only a few words changed in between that, right?
Right. And I think both of those players went through like I've known them since, you know, wow, I've been playing longer than both of them. That's sad. But I've known them coming up, and they both had areas where they knew they were really good, like they knew they were going somewhere, but it just didn't quite catch up to the gameplay. And so they're kind of leashing around their skill with their motivation and confidence, and eventually it caught up, and now they're in great heights. So this isn't a criticism at all, but you're going to have to go through some turbulence if you go through this process and make it as a top player. Like, there is going to be times where you cannot execute. This game's too hard to just come into it and start kicking everyone's ass. Like, there's going to be times where you could do something and you just straight up don't, and then you lose a set, and then you're out of the tournament, and then your weekend, that's your weekend, and you have to sit on that loss for the whole week. And it's a matter of, what do you do Monday through Friday to get to the next tournament and then figure it all out again. And
I 100% agree.
Start
and
better.
And like, this sort of kind of ties into like the next thing I'll address, right? Where it's like, how we deal with playing bad in tournament, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think it really depends, right? Because playing bad in tournament is a little vague, I think, in terms of how it was phrased, right? Like, I think that playing bad in tournament, it's how do you define what's bad for you, right? You set the standard going into a tournament, what's good, what's bad, right? And so, like, right, for me, for Genesis, I said the standard was I wanted to be able to play my best, right? And I did, right? I told you I was playing at like 80%, and that very consistently, and I dealt with the pressures, I dealt with the nerves, and I wanted to do that, and I did that. So Genesis for me was a good tournament, quote unquote, right? So, but it's really, you see people and they're like, I had a bad tournament, and it could be like, you were playing pretty well, but like, you just had a bad placing, right? Someone else just played better than you in the moment, right? Or you made some mistakes or some unfortunate stuff happened, right? Or a bad tournament is like, you actually played bad, right? And I think it's sort of like in the moment, like during a set, if you like acknowledge you're playing bad, right? You talked about this. I want to go back to your NYXL experience,
right,
where you didn't have your controller and you borrowed someone else's. You saw what the controller could do, and you just did that. And it's something that sort of Beerman tells me, like back when I played with him more, and he was like more of my mentor, was, don't worry about what you can't do in the moment during a set. You still can do things. The problem is that when you're playing bad, like, or quote unquote, you feel like you're playing bad, and I'm talking about not like feeling that you're playing bad, but like your gameplay is actually poor and you're missing stuff.
Right.
Is that's fine. You can't do that in the moment, and you sort of have to like accept that. That's what he always told me. You just have to do what you can do after that.
Yeah,
right?
give it up. Let it go. I can't ledge dash, turn around up tilt. Don't do it.
Why are you trying to ledge dash, turn around up tilt?
Yeah.
It's not like everyone has to be hacks. Where remember when he misses a ledge dash, he just goes back right to the ledge and does it again until he gets it.
That's the old hacks.
Yeah,
he's done with that stuff. But yeah, it's the trope. It's exactly
it's the trope. Yeah. But it's sort of that idea where it's like you would just have to let it go, and letting go and accepting. I feel like you say like, oh, I say accept, and those mean pretty much the same thing. But yeah, it's the idea of like, you can't do that right now, and that's okay. But what are you gonna do? You still can do stuff,
Right.
It's not like your hands are broken or chopped off or anything after that, right? Like, you can still play. You just have to play differently. And I think having that adjustment and having that in you, knowing that you can like play that way, is like important, right? And I feel like you can only see that if you have been through the experience, right?
Right. That's I love that, because that's something I think that should be reminded of every single day, because you don't know when you're going to be able to just not do a tech, like for whatever reason. This game's impossibly hard, so sometimes you'll just not have a tech that you thought you had a reliable grasp on, and then stubbornly you'll keep going for it. But if you like, I think ledge dash is a really good example, actually, because a lot of times people think that they have good ledge dashes, and they probably do. But if you don't have a good ledge dash at the moment, then you don't have it. That's just, you could be as good as you want when you practice, but when it comes down to it, you're still getting beat by like stupid options because they're covering your faults.
Yeah, you know what would work if they're covering your bad ledge dashes? Regular get up.
Yeah, just do anything
Go to
else.
the platform.
Right. One thing I wanted to mention,
Wait them out.
one more part to this question is like, what do you do bad during a tournament set? But let's say after the tournament set, it's all done. You played bad. You know, you either got upset or you just like got 3-0'd by someone you normally close with or whatever.
You just played bad.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Like that feeling sucks. The one thing I always do, and it's kept me going and it's made me feel really happy with Melee in general, is I take everything Melee related, I take it out of my head. What's going on in my life right now? Am I still fulfilling my obligations? Did I have a bad day at work, or am I late on back at college? Am I late on a homework assignment? Is there something that I need to be doing better? Have I been eating poorly? Have I not been exercising? Have I been just watching too much television, or maybe you're working too hard and you wanted Melee to be something to unwind, and you didn't quite have enough time to get back to, a lot of times bad Melee play is a symptom of something else going on. And I think the most important thing we could always do is just every once in a while, just take Melee and say, this is the least important thing in the world. I don't even care. How's everything else? And then you could find time for that to go back in. A lot of times sleep is a problem. People don't know it. They think that just writing off 5 hours of sleep for weeks at a time is good. It's not, really take care of yourself. And once all that is done, once you could truly say like things are going well, why am I playing poorly? Then you bring Melee back. Am I doing enough analysis? Am I practicing hard enough? Am I just getting nervous? And then it's a mentality thing, like that's the
what
block,
I did with
the
Hog,
mental block.
Yeah, but that's what I did at Hog, right? I came back, we ran the podcast, and I was like, dude, my heart was beating way faster in tournament than in money matches. I wonder why that is.
Right.
Yeah, because it makes a huge difference.
Right.
And I think you kind of laid down a really, really great like sort of workflow to kind of go through that, and I kind of love that, honestly. There's not much I can say after that. I think
I nailed it. I'm the best.
You nailed it. Yeah, cut the check. But I think the other thing I think is Iram talks about something about anger, right? And this sort of emotional side of things, right? Also, right? Because it's not just you lost and you feel bad, but there is this emotional component where, for one reason or another, you feel like waste of time. You don't feel like, why should I keep playing this game? And you have those thoughts. We've all had those thoughts, Right. And I want to address that a little more. In the one thing I've learned personally, and actually this was just from observation, is that I think that a lot of people mask their anger, right, and mask their frustration, right, in this caveat of having a good mentality and being like, things are fine, right? And it looks like that dog fire meme, right, where it's like, no, like I did this and did this, but if you don't really believe in it and you're just saying it, you can't really like fake out yourself, right, and how you feel. And that's something that I always question this, and then now that I'm a little older, a little wiser, I realize why it was good. Is that I saw Cody back in Upstate, and you saw Cody back in Upstate, and he was such a rager back then.
Yeah.
And I always wondered about it, right? And it was just like, but it didn't hurt anyone. He just got very angry at himself, right?
Yep.
But what I realized to sort of express those emotions, you have, because in the game you're trying to withhold your emotions, right? You're withholding your emotions for so long, either emotions of joy for like a win that's coming up, or of dread, right? Of you seeing you lose, and it needs to go out somehow. And so sort of that acknowledging and letting go of those emotions and letting it sort of pass through you in whatever method works for you personally, I think is very important, right?
Anger's tough. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And so like for Cody, it was like the way he raged allowed him to sort of kind of let it all out, let all the steam out and do it, right? For me, it's very much this sort of introspective, like quiet time that I need for myself, like with the next few days.
Right.
And knowing how you can recover from that, I think is like very, very important.
I think anger is really tough because anger begets anger. Like it's very easy for that to get out of hand. And so a lot of a lot of being angry is really just calming yourself down and tricking yourself into being like, no, I'm not angry.
Interesting.
It's a balance, because you can't just completely ignore everything and then you're just silently seething. You know, it's not about giving off the impression of not being angry. It's really, it's a whole different issue. It's so not Melee related, you know. Well, not Melee related, but it's more than Melee. Like, anger is not something that
is Melee specific.
Melee specific, right? And that's obvious, but it's if that's how you're feeling, then anything you do in Melee is not going to address that. It's not like if getting angry after something that happens to you, then getting better at Melee or grinding harder and getting wins is not really going to resolve that.
You're right. That's dodging it. You're just dodging it.
And I think it's also kind of what's the expression? Mistaking the forest for the trees a little bit. Like, oh, I'm getting mad because I'm losing Melee. You're getting mad because of other reasons, probably. And that's not a shot, because we all have our shit, man. Like, I've had anger issues in the past and have my own issues now. So it's not about like, if you have anger, like, good luck. It's about
same here.
Yeah. It's
like,
about,
mine was masked in a very different way, but yeah.
Right. And it's just about, it's like what I said before. It's figuring out, okay, what outside of this game is causing me to feel this way, whether it's anger, depression, loneliness, whatever.
Yeah.
Addressing those as the primary goal. And then coming back and saying, all right, it's time to start getting better and winning and start reaping the benefits of feeling real improvement. We've been on these questions a lot. This is fun. I have one more question.
This is actually,
this is sick.
This is so sick.
I have one more question from someone who, all the way back in episode 1,
oh shit,
gave us a question from SynthVerity.
Okay, hi.
So I'm going to read it verbatim, because shout-outs for the first question. Glad to know some of the upstate crew is still pushing ahead. We were talking about Cody this episode, I think. If I had to recommend a conversation point, I'd like to hear, what are your thoughts on reporting in the Melee scene? Do you think that there isn't enough coverage of events? Too much? Where do you guys go for news? And what do you think about that source? What sources in general seem to be good, and which ones are terrible? I'm sure Will knows how interested I am in this topic, LOL. Do you know how interested SynthVerity is it?
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Shit. All right. Yo, Austin, what's good?
Thank God. Oh man.
Dude, because his tag's Verity, and he's such a homie. He moved to Utah. Honestly, God, I miss him so much, dude. He was such a homie. Yeah. So let's go through the question like one by one.
I really like the question.
It's a multi-phase question.
Yeah.
Right.
So first point. What are your thoughts on reporting in the Melee scene? It's garbage.
Garbage, yeah. I think
there's no incentive. I think
there's no incentive for it, right? But there's a lot of passion for it, and I think right now, right, you can say the basic things, right? There is no reporting. We look through everything through Twitter, right? It's a lot of hearsay. We're playing telephone, right? On like, oh, so and so beat this. Oh, so and so beat this.
Right.
Oh, yo, did you see what happened to Lucky and Dark Atma? Dude, I saw. Did you see the Twitch clip? Oh, here's the Twitch clip. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of the problem is with the reporting, I think, in Melee and in not less with esports in general, because I've seen Ipengu's like Cheddar esports stuff, and like that I think is really interesting.
Right.
I really love what they're doing, actually, what Cheddar esports is doing, even though I don't really watch like they're like, I know what they're doing, but I don't really I'm not gonna watch about Dota and stuff.
Yeah, personally, I don't follow esports in general, but yeah, I get what you're saying. They do a great job.
It seems like they're doing a great job. Right. And so I think the issue is that a lot with Melee reporting, right, is that they don't report on something as holistically, and it's a lot of player-centric reports. You see a lot of player interviews post-game. You do like, or you do, you see Tafo or Ipengu do a lot of player interviews, which are great. Don't get me wrong about that.
Yeah.
Very well done. very great player insight interviews.
Yeah.
But it's so player centric. It's from the player's mind. But we don't see like this was Genesis 6. This is what happened this tournament. So and so, right? The only time we see that, and like I know there's some critics who don't like his stuff, and I don't watch too much of his stuff, but I respect what he does. Is like the save untitled, like storylines going in, right? The problem is that there's no follow up with it, where it's like there's no post, like, all right, here is what we know now, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you see in sports, right? You have a pre-match thing for soccer. It's Arsenal versus Chelsea.
Yeah.
This is my horrible British accent.
Yeah, giving me shit earlier.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, it's Arsenal versus Chelsea. Look, they're probably going to line up. Arsenal's probably going to line up 4-3-2-1. Chelsea's going to do the classic 4-3-3. This player has a red card last game, so he's not going to be in it. I wonder how that's going to affect the tactical decisions going into the game. This is where the teams stand on the table. They need this and this to kind of go their way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a post-match. All right, Arsenal-Chelsea. Arsenal won 2-0. Chelsea really never got on the front foot of things. Since the start of the whistle, Arsenal kind of pressed on them very high, and this is what happened to them. So-and-so scored, right?
Sure.
And we never see the post-match interviews. And that's why it's sad that we don't see that. And also analyst desks, right? Analyst desks are really important in sports that are slower pace or multi-day things, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it sucks that they only did it once at the Big House. But it's just like, okay, we're about to start top 8. Let's preview this, right? And I think one esports that does this really well is E-League. E-League is so good at this. Have you seen E-League's production?
I've definitely watched their stream, but I haven't. It doesn't come to mind this pre top 8 or pre finals.
No, let me tell you. They run every match. There's 2 minutes of analysis before and afterwards.
Yeah, wow.
And so they have a replay. They're like, okay, let's look at this big time. Let's look at this drop. This is where it all went wrong. Or let's look at this decision. This is where it all went right. Right. That's the post match. And then it transitions to like, okay, who do we got next? Oh my God, we got Justin Wong versus Daigo coming up next. Obviously some people with great history.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at their head to head. Recently, it seems like Justin has Daigo's number. All right, let's watch the match. Right. And it's so well done and so fluid that like it weaves storylines. And I think that's the problem, is that Melee before it's still a lot of hearsay, but no one's now that the community is so much bigger than it was before, no one's weaving stories coming in and out of these majors anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a great suggestion. A pre top 8, because you have really from a production standpoint, it would be a bit of a time crunch, but it's not impossible. You have about 12 hours, 14 hours of time to just get, and also as the top 8s get figured out during the day of Saturday too. So there's time to get at least those first matches across the board figured out. And just to craft a small narrative around the top 8, I think would be amazing, because a viewership spikes before top 8. There's no way every single one of those people knows who these players are. I'm sure they all know like Mango, Hungry Box, Armada, etc. Not Armada anymore, RIP. But there needs to be some sort of way to let everyone know, besides Save Us Untitled's videos. Who big shout outs. He's amazing. I love his videos.
Yeah, definitely brought something fresh to the community.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's great. Doing good videos for Ultimate
it's like,
too.
Why should I care about this tournament? Well, okay, that's why I should care.
Right, but I think that sort of thing needs to be put right before top 8, like you just said. And it's just putting a team together. It's all going to be a passion project, right? It's all going to be just finding people to do this.
That's our community. It's all passion.
Exactly. But I think it'd be a huge benefit. I think it would really tie in the whole tournament together into this last, like, all right, top 8 starting. Let's get excited. Analysis desks are the harder thing, though.
Yeah, of course. And the other thing is that I think I forgot to mention with the E-League stuff, and only DJ does this, but the problem is that DJ has like 30 seconds to explain an entire matchup.
Right.
And it's like, in the E-League analyst desk, like, you should just watch it, just sort of see. I think as a production person, you'd be really interested in it. Okay. But it's like, they look at it and like, okay, Daigo versus all right, Daigo versus Justin Wong. Okay, let's see. That's a Guile versus Chun-Li matchup, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, what is Guile looking to get in? As we know, Guile has trouble getting over Chun-Li's big normals. So what are going to be the stuff that Daigo's going to look for, right?
Sure.
DJ is like one of the only people that does that. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, like watch him versus Duck versus Bambi at Genesis. He says, okay, Young Link Samus, like, all right, well, like Young Link has trouble like obviously killing, but he has a good time like keeping Link out with the projectiles. He's really going to be looking for these setups to kill mainly. Beside for that, like what can Duck do to counter that, and like obviously where does Duck have just like the favorable advantages in the matchup,
right?
And it's so hard to do that while the game's
yeah.
All right, I think that was a great answer to the first part of that question.
Yeah, so a couple other things I think I'm just gonna answer real quick. Where do you guys go for news, and what do you think about that source? Twitter mostly, Reddit, just a kind of coagulation of
pretty much
what's
just
happening.
Twitter for me, yeah.
Twitter,
YouTube, I would say, but yeah.
I've discovered that Twitch clips are usually good to just kind of go down, and a lot of times the best moments, like Saturday, is hard to keep up with. So it's
imagine if someone just Twitch clipped everything and just put it into a video. You could just do that, dude.
Wait, they do that?
Where?
Like there's like multiple channels that straight up just take all the Twitch clips and go into like top 8 highlights. It's like the lowest quality. Okay. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is add my own voice, trying to get some
yeah.
But whatever. What sources in general seem to be good and which ones are terrible?
I hate Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit sucks. But it's like you have to give shout outs because the people who like there's no incentive. It's just people like, oh, I'm excited about this. Let me post about it. Like, this is my friend doing well. So it's really just people's friends trying to get their friends' attention. And you can't hate on that. Like,
that's true.
It's a lot of love that goes into the Reddit, so you can't shit on it. It's just, I think it's missing a lot. A lot of things go by the wayside.
I think we're just saying that there's no structure really to
exactly, it. Yeah. And also, the Smash Bros. Subreddit is like 99% ultimate, and then like when Melee top 8 is happening, the Melee floodgates open, and then it goes right back to ultimate. So... And then SSBM is kind of like it's a good location, but it doesn't have the same like people on it. It doesn't have the same attendance.
People power.
Yeah.
Population.
Yeah. Let's see. There's one other question. Do you think that there isn't enough coverage of events / too much?
Absolutely, there is not enough.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
I want to give shout outs to the people writing blogs. Edward Budding.
Yes.
I love his Monday morning Marth. He just kind of types one out once a week.
Melee Stats podcasts too, they're really great for
that. RIP though, but
RIP, but truthfully, great content. Great to know, like what's it's like, oh my god, like you actually know the details of it, and it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So shout outs to him for sure.
And Tafo Stats too. I think it's still running.
Yeah.
So the stats.
That's why I missed those Tafu Yahoo things. Those were great.
Yeah.
Let's look into this a little deeper. Yeah. I think another issue is no one looks into deep dives. No one dives deep into anything.
That's right? Literally the name of the new Melee Stats podcast.
Oh, really?
Deep dives. Melee deep dives.
Oh, really?
I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure it's amazing.
I'm going to trademark that.
Trademark? Something that's already started?
Trademarked. Is it trademarked? If it's not, I can do it, dude.
All right. But yeah,
look at sorry.
No.
I just want to say like last thing is like you look at like I watch like a lot of like anime analysis like stuff like just because I like learning more about the anime and the behind the scenes stuff, right? But people that like kind of just put stuff under the microscope more. You know who does that actually? Turn Down for Walt. He does like all the combo videos, but recently he's been putting out stuff by like let's look at a famous interaction frame by frame and break it down, right? So he broke down like the famous up B that Zayn did against Rishi, where he was a frame too late.
I'm looking up his thing right now.
Yeah, it's Turn Down for Walt, WALT.
Oh, he's pumping content out like crazy.
Yeah, I really like this that he does. And his combo videos are also my favorite. My favorite is the streamlined Cyrox Fox montage by far. But yeah, he's putting out a lot, and it's like I think we need more of that. I think the issue that we haven't talked about is that it's not. When I say it's not organized, I want to say that there's no one-stop shop for everything. It's like I know about this, but you don't know about this. How are people supposed to know about this?
Right.
You know. So I feel like someone needs to make like all right, guys, here's a Google Doc for everything you want, right? Or like just a weekly, like similar to like what Edwin Budding does, but do like a weekly content blast, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like here's all the content that was created this week. How crazy would that be?
That I've had that idea. Some guy named Nick Lasagna, was doing that, and I think just the workload was a little too much. I think like doing it every single week was pretty tough.
It sounds like a team effort, if ever.
Absolutely. It's more of an
or
organizational.
If someone like could give you all the stuff, like, hey, if you made content this week, send it to me, and I'm gonna do it. Right. That would be easier.
Right. It's an organizational effort because the idea I had was going to be going through like smaller regions and giving like a small you know how we kind of do like a weekly shout out.
Yeah, of course.
But taking like combos or going over a small regional, let's say like, oh, Oklahoma had a sick regional. These players came. Here are some highlights. And every week kind of going around like that and just giving love to all the players that go into this. But at the same time going over like, okay, in case you missed it, here's this. I think it's possible. Definitely tough when you work full time to put out a video like that.
Yeah, it's definitely tough.
Let's talk. The last question.
Last question. Yeah, I like this. I like this question. Let's end it with this.
Yeah.
I think though this episode's been hella.
Yeah.
I definitely have to be a good boyfriend in a bit.
Yeah, I gotta go soon too. Yeah. So you want to take it?
Yeah, I want to take it. So it's sort of this idea of like when is your time, right? When are you happy with what we've done, right? Because we do so much stuff, we've been playing so much, you devote and give up so much for this game, where it's like, when can you rest, right? When can you rest peacefully is sort of like the idea of this. And for me, I think I have different answers, and it's changed more and more. I think, and I feel like I'm always gonna play this game. Like that's the issue. Is I'm always gonna play it.
It's the issue with answering the question.
Yeah, it's the issue with answering the question. Is I'm always gonna love it, and I'm gonna be part of the community in different ways. The idea of like, I think this question, I want to tackle it more as because I know that I'm always going to be part of the community and always going to do some stuff with this stuff. That I think I want to view this as, when am I going to be satisfied as a player, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, I think this is how I'm reading this question. And so for me as a player, I think as long as I can keep playing and can keep on improving, I don't think I'll stop. And like, obviously that's so vague because, you can have monetary issues, you can have time issues, work, or, people are in the FGC with families, like it's tough, right? Like, there's a Dragon Ball Z player, Reynald, he works out, he goes to a tournament every week, but he has a wife and kid, and a job. It's different, right? I think for me personally, right, when I look at it, I think I've devoted so much time with it, and I love the game so much that, like, I think I definitely want to be, and I actually don't feel bad about saying this because it was always the goal, but to be ranked, right? Like in terms of top 100 and stuff like that. I think being able to, but the weird thing is, it feels like a small goal for me, or like a soft goal is the term I like using personally.
Right.
Where it's like, I want to aim for that because I think, and it's not about getting the ranking. It's not about, I want to be top 100, but it's more so it's like, and I'll tie this into the Celeste game actually, where it's like, I want to say that I want to look back at myself and say like, 5 years ago I said I wanted to do this, and I did it, and I climbed it, and then I'm gonna keep doing it, and I'm gonna keep on improving. But at some point, I think it would be really cool and to look back and be like, I went on this 4-year, 5, 6, 7-year journey for however long it took me to get there,
right?
And did it. Like, how many people can say that? You know, how many people can say like I devoted so much to this and did it, you know, and didn't stop at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I wanted. It's not because like I only wanted to do that and that was my only drive just to prove people wrong or whatever. Like, and it's not about proving people wrong. For me, it's more so about like I love this game. I fell in love with the game as I grew into it, and to be able to like be one of the best players on the world at a time point, and also be able to at the same time say that like I started off like at a random tournament for free Chipotle and said I could be really good at this game and did it. It would be so cool as like a life story, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for me is something that I like would look back into and like it's like wow, that would be such an awesome narrative to have, right? And it's not about who was better than me or how or what my ranking was in particular. I grew in love with this game more than I thought I ever would, and so it's hard to say like when can I actually stop playing the game, but more so as a soft goal, like that definitely gives me some sort of feelings that I can't really describe right now, but I know I'm feeling something when I think about it, and I think that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on the top 100 thing. I think let's say if and when that happens, I will definitely have a moment of contemplation about what's next. Is it enough? And I won't know how it feels until that happens. But I know that it's been a goal for a very, very long time. And as it gets more and more more feasible, as I'm seeing that, every year there are more players that I've gotten wins on, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Like I'm definitely eligible. I'm definitely able. That's when it becomes more of, will that be enough? And I don't know. I think if that doesn't happen, I would be satisfied with my time if I get pulled into some sort of career where I'm incredibly busy and creatively fulfilled. Where, let's say,
being able to chase a dream is not to interrupt you, I just want to say,
right,
being able to chase a dream in itself is not something that everyone gets to do.
right, yeah. And right now I have multiple that I'm kind of doing at the same time that feel that feel possible. The thing about Melee is that it because it's a smaller field, it's a little more possible than a career in comedy. But regardless, let's say I get a job writing or something, or with a team of people making videos or whatever it may be. If it comes to a point where I have to put 60, 65, 70 hours a week into this other creative outlet that I have, this other passion, then Melee is going to be one of those things that's going to have to, like, I'm not going to give up time with family or my girlfriend, or if I ever have kids, like I have to look at Melee as this thing that gives me a lot of joy. But if something else is going to give me that, and it has to be my career, then that's it, man. That's the cutoff point. And I've actually reached that point earlier, or like right after the summer last year. I reached the point where I thought that was it. I'm like, okay, I'm done as a player. Let me start focusing on content and getting on commentary. Like that's where I have to give up being a player to get to that. And a couple weeks after deciding that, like it kind of melted away. Like that's not what it just didn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't right. It was very contrived sort of decision of why I thought that's how it had to be, rather than following what really was driving me. So it's hard to say now what it's going to take for me to quit. But it's probably not coming anytime soon,
Yeah, you know what? I thought of my metaphor for this, right? Oh, and that was really well said. Also, by the way, JD.
Thanks.
No, that was sick. But when I talked about like the idea of like being able to say I'll do something and actually doing it. That's sort of like the idea of like Celeste. So definitely play that game. One thing, just before I forget, because I love the game.
Okay.
But no, I think the idea where it's like, and the only reason I'm bringing that up again is because you think of this idea of the mountain, right? A mountain to climb, right? How many times have we said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I think the thing is that there's only, and now I think I finally understand one of my favorite anime quotes also, which is interesting. But I'll start with a mountain, and it's the idea that, right, at the summit, or what we perceive as the summit, right, there are mountains that go past the clouds, right, as you've seen in like very National Geographic photos and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's where we're at, and it's not necessarily the summit, but you can't see anything past a certain. There are clouds in the way,
Yeah.
and only until we get there,
Wow.
where we can see whether this is the summit. Are we on this mountain, and then we see other mountains, and we're on the summit, or is there still more to climb after that?
Wow.
And I feel like there's no way we'll know till then, you know? And sort of that's how I've been trying to view it. But talking about this now, I'm kind of getting some goosebumps because it's kind of being a little clearer for me, where it's like, it's not this idea of like forcing myself not to think about it. It's just that I won't know, you know? Like,
It's impossible.
it's impossible. After those clouds, is there more for me to climb, or is that the summit and I won't know?
Or are there
know?
more clouds?
Or there are more clouds, yeah.
Yeah.
Does it just get foggy, you know? And I think sort of that idea, and one of my favorite quotes, and it's such a trope in Smash, which I hate because it's such a good anime, is the ping pong animation, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of 2016 was about ping pong, pretty much. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the views is, and I've always loved this ever since I started Melee, because is that there's only some views you can see from the top, right? And I always viewed it as like, oh, you have to be the best to see certain things, right? But I realized that the quote's so vague in terms of what is the right,
Mm-hmm.
like, and in terms of more or less, like, yeah, you can view it like that's the most easy way to understand the quote, and that's fine. But I guess the way I'm viewing it is that there's only some views you can see from certain points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard for us to see that, not because we don't know it, or because we're like, even though we think about it, or even though it pops in our heads, or even though we have a bad tournament and you're like, is this it, right? I've certainly had those thoughts. And it's just like, we're still climbing the mountains and there are clouds ahead of us, and we don't know what's beyond that, but we want to get to the clouds for sure.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens, man. We just got to keep climbing.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I really like that analogy when I think about it.
It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't get to the questions for each other. Let's hold out on that, because
that's fine. We can run that on episode 11, guys.
Yeah, man.
Tune in.
We have to do the stream more often.
I think we should do it more often. I think we should talk about that. We definitely want to hear some feedback. So please comment or DM us, Twitter, on Facebook, or anything like that. Just DM us what you thought about the experience. DM us if you thought you liked our answers to our questions. If you had more questions, we'll answer it next time.
Yeah.
But we'll figure this out. We'll see if we can make this like more of a regular thing, or if we can like do like 2 half episodes or something like that. 1 Q&A, one for ourselves, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, talking more doesn't hurt, right?
It was a lot of fun. Really appreciate all the people that came into the chat and made this time very special. And yeah, any last words, man?
Just thanks for, thanks JD, I feel like saying thanks to everyone,
Thank you.
Like, thanks
everyone.
JD for doing the podcast with me. Like, this has been so fun. Honestly, arguably like such like a life changer in the way. Like, it's just such a healthy.
It's very healthy.
It's very healthy.
It's helped
and
me
it's
so
so
much.
cool to do it with you too, right?
Oh,
And it's so personal and open.
Ooh.
Thanks to all the supporters out there. Like, in terms of, thanks for everyone who joined the chat. Like, I was honestly not expecting it. Truth be told, I knew Miso would be there, so I knew we'd have one.
Yeah, he was.
I did not know who else after that would be there. So this was really awesome. I appreciate all the love, even if you just stopped in and said hi. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Last thing, just follow us on all over our social media. So you can also feel to feel free to like friend us on Facebook and stuff like that. Just if in case you want to DM us for any questions or comments.
I didn't put our the SSB Wannabes Twitter handle.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Might be.
No worries. Yeah. Just add it in there somewhere.
Okay.
So follow us on Twitter at SSB_Wannabes. Also follow us on our YouTube channel, SSB Wannabes.
It's gonna be right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
You're gonna do that pointing thing now. All right, God,
yeah.
We're really evolving.
But it's gonna be there the whole time in the video.
Cool. Obviously follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Podbean also. Maybe we'll try to start figuring out if we can get this on Spotify and stuff. Some future plans, obviously we make all our posts on NYCSSBM, but if you want something more consistent, Twitter is probably the best bet. I update it whenever we roll out content. Talking about new content, we have a vlog compilation of me at Genesis coming up, which JD will get to.
Yeah.
But check that out, dude. It's gonna be sick. It really helped me for my tournament prep, so hopefully you guys try it out. And then last thing is JD, thoughts, just a little teaser, just thoughts. We have a server now. We should just make that a permanent thing. We'll talk it after.
I'm playing music. You can't hear it.
I can't. All right.
It's our theme song.
Yeah,
we'll talk. We'll talk about the Discord. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for all the love, guys. I would say.
Yeah, you can't hear it, Will, but it's bumping. And I don't have to do it in post this time.
Oh really? That's hard. All right. All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining in, everyone.